Thank you for joining us today for Perspectives, brought to you by the Mission and Installation Contracting Command. I am Ben Gonzalez, the MICC Public Affairs Officer. Joining us today is Brigadier General Jeff Gabbert, the MICC Commanding General, George Cabaniss, the Deputy to the Commanding General, and Command Sergeant Major Steve Bowens, the MICC Command Sergeant Major. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to be here.
Let's start with a little more insight that you may not find in your biographies. First off, General Gabbert, I understand that you're a marathoner. How many marathons have you run, and how long have you been running marathons?
Well, Ben, I started running marathons back in 2008 when I was the Iraq-Afghanistan commander. And it's a long story, but essentially I was challenged by a petition from every member of my command that said, if I only run half a marathon, I'm only half a commander. And so the gauntlet was dropped in, so I started running marathons at that point. Since then, I've run 3 Boston marathons with my PR being of 3 hours and 28 minutes.
Wow, amazing. That's interesting. Now, reviewing your biography, Mr. Cabaniss, it shows that you've practiced law for several years. When you transitioned from being a lawyer over to working for the government, does your legal background give you an added advantage in the acquisition career field?
It does. I practiced law in the city of Atlanta for about 10 years in the 1990s. And I was a trial lawyer, and trial lawyers tend to be a little aggressive. And one day in the fall of 1999, my wife looked at me and she said, "George, you're not a nice guy anymore." And I really wasn't spending enough time with my wife and my family. And so as a couple and as a family, we got together and we decided we'd take a different tack in our lives. I used to be a 1102 prior to being an attorney. And we made the decision that we'd take a cut in pay so that we could spend more time together as a family. And just by coincidence, within about 3 months of that decision, my old boss called me and was telling me about how hard it was to find competent 1102s. And I said, well, I can solve that problem for you. And so he offered me a job, and I went back to work for the federal government as an 1102. And what I found is, as a trained attorney, is as an attorney you have to be able to look at problems from different points of view. And good 1102s do the exact same thing. So the training as an attorney really did help me get back to being an 1102 and to apply those skills.
Thank you, sir. Now, everyone knows the Command Sergeant Major has a recruiting background because you have the badge prominently on your chest. But I know a lot of people don't know you're a big Carolina Panthers fan, and you're not the only E9 in your house. What do you attribute to the success of your career?
I would tell you just having the privilege of leading soldiers. You know, when you have the ability, because I do consider it a privilege, when you have the ability of sweating, leading, and soldiers and trusting in their leadership to move them, not only them professionally, but personally with their families. I mean, that skill set and that ability to lead those individuals, and those individuals willing to bleed for you, and knowing that you will bleed for them on any occasion, it just gives you that sense of aspiration to go out there and continue this fight. And I contribute that lifestyle and coming up in the Army to everything I do. And being a soldier and being a professional is our family's business, and that's how we continue to lead our lives.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. Now, understand in June, the Army Contracting Command held their Commanders Conference. General Gabbert, can you share with us what initiatives were discussed at the conference?
Yeah, there were several initiatives. So that we went to the Commanders Conference hosted by now Major General Harrison and his deputy Mike Hutchinson, and all of the Acquisition Center directors and fellow commanders were present. And so we first had an industry day council where we met with industry to discuss contracting issues that are prevalent throughout our career field, and the friction sometimes between the government and industry, and ways to go about resolving those issues. So there were several topics that were discussed, and I think also what's really important for the MICC workforce is that we were able to, myself and Mr. Cabaniss, to give a briefing on the initiatives that the Mission and Installation Contracting Command is doing. So everything from our mission statement, so that quad chart that we use that shows our mission, our commander's intent, and our command motto, then to our business priorities, and then to our metrics program. And it was so well received that the Army Contracting Command, Major General Harrison, is going to adopt and adapt our products to the ACC. So they had a subsequent meeting to that to place the ACC framework into the work that we had already done. And George, what do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I thought the nice thing about that conference, sir, was the fact that there was a free flow of information. Everybody who was there, who was a leader, felt like they could talk and contribute to the conversation. And sometimes at the senior level, that doesn't happen. And so I thought the atmosphere created by General Harrison and Mike Hutchinson encouraged us all to talk and contribute, and I think that happened.
Oh, great, great. And so, our Major, you were also at the event. What did you take away from the conference?
I think it was outstanding. I think the strategic communication amongst the leaders is going to, come about fourfold to make sure that as we maneuver forward, not only today, tomorrow, or 2020, that we'll be able to get this to fruition. So.
Yeah, so to wrap it up, your question, I would say one of the also things that go unsaid was it wasn't all military-centric and it wasn't all civilian. And I think it's continuing to take hold throughout the whole Army Contracting Command that we are a civil military organization, and we have to bring both of those together, and we have to address the concerns of each of those different constituencies and fields equitably as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Sergeant Major, I know you've been fighting to get 51 Charlie soldiers the opportunity to be considered for the nominative process. Can you tell me how that's going?
Well, I'll tell you thus far, but before I actually answer the question, I want to say thanks to you and your team and Mr. Elkins for enrolling the campaign plan on assisting us to get the strategic message out. Mr. Elkins, he laid out a 7-point campaign plan which enabled, first of all, the office calls with the BOD, the Sergeant Major of the Army BOD, those board members that actually nominate the people who will be considered by our general officers to serve in these positions. So I've had the opportunity of contacting each one of those, followed by the strategic article that Mr. Elkins wrote very, very well, and it got out across the Army. And I've gotten great feedback from that as well. And recently, well, should I say, in the near future, we'll be getting a video sent out by General Gabbert so that the general officers will see exactly, hearing it from a general, exactly the invaluable assets which our 51 Charlies can hold. Wholeheartedly, I said from day one that I believe that the person that sits in the seat that I'm fortunate to sit in today should be a 51 Charlie. They've been developed their whole entire career in the United States Army with that skill set to advise commanders about this business and about the things that happen. They have the maturation, they have the resiliency, but most of all, they have the tempo that has been ingrained in them from day one to be able to do this job. And I would be delighted if when I change responsibility next November, that person who will change with me would be a 51 Charlie, and I think the Army would have gotten it right.
Well, we look forward to, I'm not saying I want you to go, but next November we're looking to see a 51 Charlie step into your role. That would be a great opportunity for all the soldiers in the career field. Our next question is for Mr. Cabaniss. Now, at the June MICC Town Hall, you briefed that the MICC is looking to reorganizing or organizing the command into offices that are small, medium, and large. We've received many questions from the field about how that's going and how the makeup of is going to be with the people and responsibilities. Many wanted to hear just the composition of the offices and how the command will continue to grow 1102s.
Okay, that's a good question. I guess let me initially start off by saying it's not so much a plan to reorganize as much as it's a recognition of where we're at as a command. For 2 years, we've not been able to hire as we had in the past. And as a result, what we find is that we have small offices, we have medium offices, and we have large offices. As leaders, we're tasked to find out how can we most efficiently and effectively use all those tools that we have as professionals. And we have, in consultation with the other leaders in the MICC, have determined that what we can do is that we can organize our workload so that workload is put where it should best be accomplished. For instance, instead of having every office have a large number of 1102s, perhaps we could focus the 1102 workforce on large offices, and work would be transmitted from the smaller offices, small or medium offices, to the large offices. That's not so much a reorganization as much as it's just recognizing where we're at as a command. In fact, AMC and ACC are currently undergoing major studies in regards to how the ACC should be structured as well as the AMC is structured. So our task as leaders was to develop a plan whereby we could acknowledge where we're at today as a command, effectively and efficiently utilize our resources, but also allow ourselves to fall into whatever the final decision is made by General Vi in the direction that AMC is going. So although, yes, it may look like a reorganization, in fact, it's not a reorganization because nobody's going to be moved. What we're doing is we're deciding where can we strategically hire people, one, where they can get the training they need, two, get the experience they need, and more important, just as importantly, we'll be able to stay and be part of the MICC team.
Okay, that makes sense. Let me take a moment to thank all the people throughout the MICC who submitted questions. We really appreciate each of you taking the time to let us know what your concerns are, and if time allowed, we would answer every question. Of course, we can't do that, but we will be able to answer the questions. We will get to that later on, where we will post all the answers to the questions. The next question comes from Fort Rucker and asks, why does the MICC have two compensation systems, the Acquisition Demonstration Project at the headquarters level and tapes for the rest of the field? General Gabbert, would you like to take a stab at that one?
Sure. So as most of our MICC members know, I also served as the Chief of Staff for Army Contracting Command and the Chief of Staff for MICC at ASALT. And so I can tell you that this same issue is prevalent throughout the Army Acquisition Corps, where some organizations are in the ACT demo and some are under tapes. And of course, in a perfect world, we would have everybody underneath the same compensation and evaluation system. And there is no clean answer. It is that some organizations, as they came out of NSPS, of course, we tried to move we saw the goodness in the ACT demo program, and we tried to move the entire workforce to a like model, which would be a universal model, NSPS. And we all know the history of that program. And so some organizations migrated out, and some organizations had not yet either converted or remained in the ACT demo. So subsequent to that, we have tried on several occasions to have the entire workforce brought under ACT demo, but we have been told that we have to wait for the next iteration of what's going to replace NSPS, if anything. So in a perfect world, we would have everybody under an ACT demo like NSPS, like or evaluation type system and compensation system, but it's because of where we are in timing that the broader government has elected to keep status quo for right now. So some of our MICC members might not like the direct response that I'll give is that we will have some vacancies here in the MICC headquarters, and we are under ACT demo. So if you'd like to move and come be part of the headquarters MICC team, then those opportunities, of course, will be available to you to take advantage of your talents. I know that may come across in the wrong way, but what I am trying to communicate is, look, in a perfect world, we would have everybody there, but because of the state in which we're in, we have been told that we can't go to bring other people onto the ACT demo at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cabaniss, with the command's top priority with being sharp, what can you tell the military and civilian workforce about the command's fight against this behavior?
Well, it's not just the command, it's the Army's top priority. It was kind of interesting, just 2 months ago, the Chief of Staff came in here to Fort Sam Houston, and he was talking to the leadership of the Army here at the base. And the number one thing he talked about was sharp, first thing he talked about. So it's clear from the top all the way down throughout the Army that the sharp issues are the number one issue that we need to deal with as command. What we have to remember as contracting professionals, as members of the MICC, we have to treat each individual with dignity and respect. That is what it's all about. As General Gabbert has said in his communications to the command, we will not tolerate anything less. And you can measure how important it is by how much time leaders spend on a subject. You know, if a leader says, this is very important to me, but later on you find out he really didn't spend any time on it, that really tells you how important it was, despite what the words are. What General Gabbert says about how important it is, Sergeant Major, when he talks about this subject to the troops and to the employees of the MICC, you know it's important because we as leaders spend a whole lot of time on this subject. Whenever there's an incident, we log it, we track it to completion. We don't only, now it's not just the leadership here at the MICC, but it's up the line to AMC. So it's not only, we're not only just saying it's important. In fact, we have mechanisms in place to ensure that it gets the attention it needs. And I would recommend that everybody who has any issues about this particular subject go to the MICC homepage, and we have a button there for the SHARP program. And I recommend that everybody go to that page and become familiar with everything they may need, anything else they may need to know about it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And that's the MICC homepage on SharePoint,
On
correct?
SharePoint.
SharePoint, right.
Okay, thank you.
And just to follow up on that as well is that, you know, here recently at a worldwide town hall, we also communicated to our MICC members because some of them were concerned that we weren't taking any action. So you know, one of our venues in that forum is the MICC Voices. And at that forum, it's on the, also recorded, and on that SharePoint page is the link to there where you can go and see with every case in the MICC. It doesn't name the person, but it names what the incident was and what action was taken. And so I think it's very important that every MICC member know that it won't be tolerated, and that every case will be prosecuted or investigated to its fullest extent, and only General Vi can close that account out, and that's how important we take it.
Thank you. We have a question from MICC Fort Sam Houston, and it asks, well, what are we doing to change the culture of misconduct for both civilian and military personnel? Sergeant Major, can you address this?
Well, yes. First of all, the word change is very interesting because as you develop yourself and read books such as like Lincoln on Leadership, you can never change culture or change a person. You can modify their behavior. So as we look at the processes and the tools that we use within our organization to modify behavior, the first thing our commanding general did upon taking command was ensure that we empower our leaders. First of all, the empowerment has to be at the leader stage to ensure that they have the ability to make decisions. And I think we've done a great job at that thus far. Our leaders have that power to make those type of decisions. So it doesn't look like it has to go up to the chain and then there's a delay in how things happen in this organization. Secondly, holding individuals accountable. As you read our vision and you read the charter for the MICC, it talks about accountability and holding individuals accountable. I think that's one thing that we're really doing in our force. The individuals in our workforce, they see that when individuals do unfortunately make a mistake or a decision that's not in line with our Army values, that they're being handled, obviously, through the regular channels, but our commanders are doing the things that they're trained to actually do. But in the same thing, we're encouraging our leaders in the field to not only be reactive, to also be proactive, to have programs in place such as when you drive to Fort Bragg, you see signs that states have not had a DUI within 100 days, 40 pass for all this unit. We have to take those type of approaches to ensure, but the key thing, as Mr. Cabaniss stated earlier, is that first line leader take an opportunity to sit down with the teammates and counsel them and continue with SHARP, continue with the different things that were plaguing our Army and teaching, mentoring, and coaching up those folks. And I think we will get after it. But overall, as we looked at our past write-ups and we look at the current write-ups, the MICC as a whole is going up and we're moving in the right direction. And I only think it's going to get better as time moves on.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
and let me focus both on the positive and the negative, right? So on the negative side, there are certain things, certain infractions or behaviors that there is no tolerance for and will be prosecuted to the fullest extent. But let's make sure that we also communicate to our great MICC members that professionally, this is not a zero defect environment. So if you make a good business decision based upon all the information you have at the time, and you move out in that vein, it's because we have given you that power and authority, and it doesn't turn out right, then the same type of rigor is not going to be brought upon you. It's going to be, okay, look, it's going to be more of a different type of counseling. This is what happened, right? Now, this is what you may have missed, and we may have to come back and retrain you or provide some additional insight so that when you go and see that same issue again, it doesn't happen again. But I want to make sure that we are communicating to the MICC workforce that we're not trying to create here a zero defect environment. We're trying to make a zero defect environment when it comes to SHARP related incidents, but when it comes to the overall general way we prosecute or exercise our daily duties, it's not the same. So we do owe it to our workforce that to make sure that they are trained, that they have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to perform the jobs that we're asking them to do, and allow them to grow in that environment.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is kind of a two-part question, and it comes from Fort Eustis. They would like to see the full staff organizational charts for the MICC headquarters and ACC, and ask how many people are there in staff positions that do not contribute to the mission. The question states, it appears to the workforce that we have been cut while the headquarters has built an empire. The member also questions the headquarters having parties and posting pictures on the MICC Facebook page, while workers in the field, in this member's opinion, do not have the time to do that, and they also feel like morale is very low. General Gabbert, would you care to answer that one?
Okay, yeah. So my response to that, Ben, and to the workforce is, look, I always tell the same story, right? So ever since I came into the Army as a second lieutenant, stood in front of my platoon and my platoon sergeant. So I was 21 years old. My platoon sergeant was about 38 years old, and so there was a different a shock at that particular point. So one of the first things they do is they teach you to get to know every one of your soldiers. So as I was getting to know my soldiers, I came to this realization that some of them just hated what they did. And it really saddened me. And I said, hey, from that point forward, so ever since I was a second lieutenant, and I've been in the Army, as Sergeant Major says I'm old, but 28 years. And I've made the personal commitment that I'm going to do all I can to make the place where you come to work a good place to work, a place where you want to work. And so that's been my charter in every job that I held. Of course, it's mission first, people always, right? And you have to be able to live to that. So I'm happy that they see that the MICC headquarters is a great place to work, because that's exactly the environment that I'm trying to create, right? Is that we will get the mission done, we will work on their behalf, but we can also have a good time doing it. It can be both. And what I'm trying to do is encourage you and your offices to do the exact same thing, right? So, where is your event? So present it to our PAO so that we can put your event on the MICC homepage. Well, we haven't received it, so that's why it's not up there. But when we do receive it, you give us a note saying you're having it. We'll have someone there to take pictures, and if you don't present them, then we'll have the local installation PAO rep there to take those pictures, to post the great things that are happening in your office, if they are happening, so that everyone can then want to come to work in your office as well. But most importantly, I want you, the MICC member who wrote the question, to be happy where you work. And so it's not about the MICC headquarters. It's about the day that I took command, we established what we call the Cheers Committee, which is nothing more than a group of individuals that can come together. So I said I'm having a meeting, and this meeting is volunteer. Anybody who wants to come can come, and we're dedicated as a group at lunchtime to meet and to come up with ideas. And it may be Popcorn Thursdays, it may be Luncheon Bowl, it may be to have an organization day, it may be to have a Christmas party. But it's a group of people who want to do, right? Who want to make a difference, who want to make this their office environment a great place to work. Because I want for you the same thing we have at the MICC headquarters, which is a team. And we're a team of teams. You're a part of our team. And I want you to want to come to work. That's the environment in which I'm trying to create, because you deserve no less.
Thank you, sir. A MICC Fort Jackson employee asked, what is the possibility of making the GPC program paperless? Specifically, having the option of making the individual account files e-files. Mr. Cabaniss, could you answer this?
It's funny because, Ben, you suggested that might be a series of questions, so I looked at the questions, and this was one of them. I said, oh, well, that's an easy one to answer. No question we can do it electronically. Well, it turns out we can't. Army regulations prohibit it. It has to be in hard copy, which is not to say individual officers, if they choose to, cannot convert the hard copy to an electronic copy and keep track of it that way. But Army policy requires us to do it in hard copy. And until that rule is changed, that's the way we will handle it as a command. I can tell you that Gary Pinion checked with DASAP, which is the organization within the Army that runs our GPC program, and they have indicated that there is strong interest in changing it to an electronic system, but no word yet as to when that change will be made.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. We have another question from Fort Eustis, and it reads, why is both mandatory and elective training so difficult to attend? Why won't the MICC provide training funding or allow local directors to use their funding toward training opportunities? General Gabbert, I'll hand that one to you.
That's a difficult question, Ben, but I'm happy to give it a try here. So part of the realization, back to what Mr. Cabaniss was saying about us trying to get our hands around how our offices should be organized for battle, so to speak, is the realization that we have to react to our environment, right? So we are an Army that's going down from 570,000 now down to 450,000, and the sequestration sticks down to 420,000. So a part of that, our budget, is commensurately going down as well. And so for the last 5 years, the MICC hasn't really received a budget. So the only budget that we do have is the personnel account. We don't, and so how we go TDY and we buy office supplies is the gap between how many people were authorized and how many people are on board. And so with that reality, there's not a lot of dollars there for training that isn't mandatory or funded through the centralized fund. So I would tell you that you all know Donna, who is in charge of our training, and I can assure you that myself, Mr. Cabaniss, and the Sergeant Major have looked at this and we've tracked it, and we don't see there of any degradation or anybody being left out of that mandatory training pipeline. So if you need a class for your level of certification, there are opportunities there. There are seats for you to attend those courses. Generally, when we get these questions in town halls and other forums, it's for individuals who are already level 3 certified who want to go back and get another course. And that is where we're finding the seam. And as the Sergeant Major, someone outside of our career field has done an analysis and said, hey, look, you guys, what you're missing a golden opportunity here. You have these rules in effect where, and they're not any written rules because he can't find them. They're just, part of our culture. They're something that's perpetuated itself because of the way we do our business. But in fourth quarter, we have this myth out there that nobody can go to training. Well, there's a lot of training available because other contracting organizations sort of have that same thing. Well, one of the things that I've tried to institute here at the MICC, as you all know by my charts and my priorities, is this one-day enlist, right? And that one-day enlist is the basis for getting at many different parts of where we're weak, if you want to categorize it like that. And that is that if you were meet with your customer and get the list of known requirements up front in the November time frame, and have those known, and then be able to then program work based upon the workforce available against those requirements, then fourth quarter wouldn't be a crisis like it is every single year. And then therefore, other people could be afforded the opportunity to take advantage of those courses that are available. And I think that's really the only opportunity we're going to be able in the near term to get after that. We're going to have to take advantage of where others don't plan quite as well as we can do here in the MICC. Do you want to add anything that's Sergeant Major?
No, sir, I think you're spot on.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. A Yuma Proving Grounds employee asking, this is a question I think it may be specific, but I think it affects more than just one person. He asked, can there be an exception for special circumstances to the CG's policy that working hours can be no earlier than 0600 hours? Sergeant Major, can you address that?
Well, first of all, before I address the question, I would like to talk about the word exception. There are exceptions to everything in our Army, but it has to be written, vetted through the proper chain, and then sent up for approval. So yes, there are exceptions. However, to be specific about this question, contracting is a team sport, and not just the team that you are hired to play on, also the team that you service, the customers. So when our customers are at work, we're at work. We support them. When you look at the systematic approaches, not only in work hours, it's also when using NTVs. The regulation clearly states the hours that you can operate a vehicle without having an exception by the commander to operate that vehicle, because it's a compliance, oversight, and safety inherent underlying all of those different policies. So we look at a lot of different things before we even vet these policies and bring it forth to our general. And when he looks at it, it's all in a systematic approach to take care of the team, to make sure the team is together, to make sure that compliance and camaraderie, supervision, oversight, but most of all, safety is involved. And we are there to provide support to our customers. Sir, would you add anything to that?
You hit it spot on, Sergeant Major.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cabaniss, I'll ask you the next question. A MICC Dugway Proving Grounds member wonders if the MICC considered assessing or requesting ACC access, a fee, or something similar and allowable to pay for contracting office personnel to perform contractor oversight.
Yeah, I'd say we thought about it, but then our legal staff told us that it's probably not something we can do. It's called augmentation of appropriations. The fact is the United States Army, the American taxpayer, pay us to do services for our customers. And one of the services that we provide is watching over and doing contractor oversight. That's what we get paid to do. And as the CG has emphasized, we get paid for doing end-to-end contracting. And so therefore, that's part of the services we provide our customer. If any office or any member of our staff finds that they're not able to meet those obligations, they need to raise that issue up to their management chain, because we need to come up with processes that will allow us to do that kind of oversight. So no, we will not be getting any additional funds for doing it, because we're required to do it now. And I think that if we properly apply our resources, we do have the resources necessary to provide that kind of oversight.
Okay, thank you, sir. A member from Fort Belvoir asked, when will the MICC 2020 plan become effective for execution? And will a directive be provided with executive guidance for the same? General Gabbert, I'll toss that one to you.
Yeah, so I think that's related to what Mr. Cabaniss was addressing when he talks about the small, medium, large. I think it's synonymous with the MICC 2020 plan. And so I think what's important here is that in a perfect world, I think we would all agree that we would have fully staffed of 1102s, property, industrial specialists, quality assurance individuals at every single MICC office, full service offices. But again, there are constraints. There are not only is it financial constraints, but there's also the ability to hire at certain locations. So what we have been asked to do, based upon all these environmental factors that are coming about, is to take a look at how we could do work differently. And then how do we go about aligning all of our different systems to performing that work in a different way, in a more effective and a more efficient way. And as we take a look at what may come about in any new plan, we have come to the realization that, look, there are, as Mr. Cabaniss said, inherently small offices. Let's just take Fort Polk, for example. They're at 38%. They've been at 38% for some time because we can't hire, even though they have the authorizations, even though we advertise to hire at that location, we can't keep any 1102s at that location for any period of time. So we have no choice, really, to change the way we do business, and it just happens to fit into this construct of where we're headed, is to move that work back to a larger office. So there is no published 2020 plan because we're just evolving to this plan just out of necessity, based upon the declining budget, the declining resources that we're being provided. We're being forced to go down a certain path of really just plugging the holes that we do have in a different way. But we're not going to reorganize because we don't have any authority to do so at this plan, at this time. So until the ACC and then AMC then goes to ASALT and then the Department of the Army gets approval from Congress, will there be any formalized plan to move out in a MICC 2020-2025 direction?
Great, thank you. Sergeant Major, can you answer the next question from Fort Belvoir? What is the difference between a military office director and a numbered contingency contracting battalion commander?
I'm going to tee this up for the CG on this one, but before, I want to first of all say that there's absolutely no difference, in my opinion, holistically, because they're a leader, and they are charged and entrusted by their subordinates to provide leadership. to help them execute the job unwaveringly. But when you start compartmentalizing titles and putting folks in box, we get a lot of trepidation and a lot of sometimes friction between deputies, directors, and battalion commanders. But all are leaders, and subordinates look up and we see leadership, and that's what we move out on. But I'm gonna pass this over to the CG because I know we've talked about this in depth in our travels.
Yeah, thank you, Sergeant Major. So I'm going to go back a couple of questions and tee this up from my part of the response, which is, ever since I came in the Army, again, back to that second lieutenant down at the platoon level, I always thought my higher headquarters, man, those guys, man, they just don't get it, right? Nothing in that company command headquarters, the XO, First Sergeant, they must have bumped their heads. They forgot what it's like to be down here at the platoon level, right? Then I got to the company level, and I thought the same thing about the battalion. Man, them guys up at battalion, man, those staff officers, man, they forgot where they came from. They're giving us all these tasks, and there's no way we can do it, right? So the same thing, every echelon of command that I've gone to. But finally, I reached the Pentagon, and I came to the realization one Sunday morning while I was at work, that you know what? Everybody else that's in this building with me, right? I'm not here all by myself, comes to work every single day. 7 days a week, a lot of them. There's 28,000 people that work in that building, right? And they come to work every day trying to do the right thing for the right reasons for that soldier out there on the point. And so that's the premise and the foundation of my response. So when I had to take a look at this, when I did my mission analysis, my IPB, Intelligence Prep of the Battlefield, look at my SWOT as my my civilian education taught me to do, look at our strengths and our weaknesses, and do the human capital, career progression, and then who do we put in the right place at the right time, and a point of leadership. I put a lot of thought into it, is what I'm trying to communicate to you, and I didn't just do it haphazardly. And I knew that there were going to be some people out there who would see it a different way. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just tell you that when I made this decision, I didn't make it haphazardly, and I knew I considered other people's point of view when I make these types of decisions. So in this one, I knew that there were going to be military members out there especially who have gone through their careers. They've reached 16 years of service, they've led at every echelon up to there, and they've got this title of battalion commander, for example. And I, therefore, am CSL Select. I went through a very rigorous board. I got to be the man or woman in charge. And I'm like, no, that's not the way it's going to be here. Because first you have to go back to that mission statement, that quad chart. And that's why I'll encourage every MICC member to take a look at it every once in a while, because every word on there is chosen very carefully. So as you all know, I added that second sentence on there, which is and how we are empowered and chartered, and I am responsible for making sure that our officers understand that they have a dual mission. First, to provide support to the installation and the activities that are on that installation and the families that are associated with that particular installation. But secondly, those soldiers that are there, that battalion that is there, has to prepare his unit to deploy, to go into harm's way and do the contracting business that our Army needs us to do. All right? So it's a dual mission. So it's not about who's in charge. It's about, if you're a lieutenant colonel, your primary purpose of being there is not to run the whole contracting office. It's to prepare the battalion and the teams under your charge to be ready to deploy. And most people didn't quite understand that until 14 days ago. 14 days ago today, a team from the MICC organization was notified, you will deploy. 14 days ago. No, we're not going to handpick you from this place, you from that team. No, you, the team, you're going. Came as a big surprise. And it didn't come from a battalion or a brigade. It came from the FDO, from FDO Eustis Formation. And it's actually the team at Fort Benning. So in 14 days, they had to get their orders. They had to put all their property in storage. They had to get all their family situation and execute their family care plans. And when the Sergeant Major and I went to Fort Benning to send them off, we were so proud of the plan that we put in place. And not about the plan we put in place, but the soldiers who stepped up to execute it, right? Not one person said, when am I coming home? Not one person said, why me? They said, hey, send me now. I don't need more time. But we said, no. You see that mom out there who was holding that 3-month-old baby? You need to spend a week with her. Make sure that she is ready to go and that she is going to be taken care of. And we had to make sure that the family support group that they left behind were going to take care of that family and the other families associated with that team. So that team is at the CRC right now, and they will deploy on the Freedom Bird next week, and they will go into harm's way in support of our nation. So this is not a pickup game. This is real, right? So it's not about who's in charge. It's about you have a mission at every contracting office, and it's dual fold. And so you have to be ready to deploy. And what's most important, right, is when we pull that battalion commander out of there, that office can't collapse. That great civilian in that case has to continue to take that office on. And then where it's in reverse, if the civilian is in charge, when that military, he has to make sure the organization is built, isn't centered around that military person. So that's why that is so important. And I want to just echo the Sergeant Major's comment that it's not about a person. It's about the position, the knowledge, skills, and ability of who is at that particular location at that time. And we're committed to putting the right person at the right place at the right time for the betterment of our organization, not an individual.
General Gabbert, the next question is for you. Can you provide the MICC's intent with the fielding of the Contracting Tactical Operations Center called CTOC?
Right, Ben. So again, as I did my battlefield circulation when I first took command, one of the realizations that I came to was that we had not been providing our office directors and our great MICC employees a business tool in order for them to have situational awareness. And so how could I expect them to understand and run a contracting office if we didn't give them the right tools? So and as I went about doing that analysis about how do I get after this? And so I sat down and wrote down what are all the problems that I think that we're having, and one of them comes back to my days in DCMA as a DCMA commander, Defense Contract Management Agency commander. I would go into my contract management office and say, okay, I'm in charge of administering contracts. Is that what we're here for? That's our main mission? Everybody's head up and down. Yep, that's what we're here for. Okay, how many contracts do we have? Crickets, just like that. So same principle here. I would go into the doc and say, how many contracts do you have pre-award and post-award? Crickets, right? Not really sure. So how are we going to get after? How do I expect you to run your part of this business if you don't have situational awareness as to how many contracts we have, and more importantly, who has them? Because it was also being brought out in Commander's Anonymous email. And so I would like to promote that program to you as well. But I also want to let you know that it is anonymous. So I often get the complaint, hey, you never wrote me back. Well, it's anonymous. I don't know who wrote it, right? So just be aware and cognizant of that. But we do take every one of your suggestions or issues very seriously. But more importantly, back to your question, is that CTOC is going to give that office director total situation awareness, a common operating picture of what work is in pre-award, what work is in post-award, and then what is it going to do for the employees, right? So this is a program for the field, built by the field. And I think that is such a powerful statement, because as I went to figure out how I'm going to get after this, Lieutenant Colonel Maria Snyder from MICC Fort Belvoir came forward and said, hey, I might have this thing for you. And I was talking to her about some other programs, and then I looked at what JBLM was doing, and I said, okay, let's take the Constat approach, let's take your program, and let's take what JBLM has brought, and let's try to merge these things together and have a program that's built by the field. But I said, look, I am not interested in any program that if one of our MICC members has to enter another data field in 3 different places, right? So it's also getting after that. It's trying to bring a program that brings the efficiencies where our MICC members only have to touch the key once. And oh, by the way, if you can import the information from PD squared, that's even better. So go back and tell me how many times, what fields the MICC member is going to have to enter twice or 3 times, and we'll have a discussion. So they went back, and they came forward and brought me a slide with about 32 entries on it, and I gave it back to them and said, okay, when this slide has no entries on it, we'll talk about fielding this program. To their credit, they went back, they worked with VCE, the members of that community and others, and they were able to bring that to fruition, bring me the chart with no entries. So this program, once you have fielded it, and it's validated that you have it fielded, you will get a certification and a waiver that you no longer have to enter items into VCE, and you no longer have to enter items into the MICC SharePoint site, such as the UAC log and others, because it'll all be inherent in this program, and it imports and uses the same data fields from the PR or the early entry, so you don't have to enter the data 2 and 3 times. And then what's also very powerful about this program is it has many links, so if you want to know how many cars your organization has that are overdue, you just hit the link and there it is. A chart shows you exactly who the specialist is and how many cars that they haven't executed. That's one vantage point of the program. The second vantage point I'd like to bring out is that there's a planning tool in there. So you, as the contract specialist, get the package and you work with your supervisor to create milestones for that particular acquisition. And if you miss one of those milestones, it turns red, and it alerts your supervisor so that you guys can have a conversation about how you're going to work with the activity to get this procurement back into sync. And then finally, you can allow your customer to see the status, and you, the office, control what fields the customer can see and which ones they can't see. So that's the next evolution of this program. And then finally, it's portable, so it's built on, it's web-based. So you can take your laptop with your CAD card and go to your customer's office. They might ask you, hey, what's the status of the PR on the chairs here? Well, you can type in the search field chairs, and it'll bring up all the PRs that are related to chairs. You can look for which one is like yours. Click on it, that PR will open it up, and you'll have all the information to include the contracting officer's notes right there available to you.
And ACC has adapted that too, correct?
ACC is, again, they're waiting for us to field it. They have asked us to come field their offices, but we have said, no, let us field our own offices first. We've also got a lot of interest from the Corps of Engineers, from INSCOM, and for us to go over and field it overseas. So again, but we've kind of put those guys off and said, look, we got to field our own offices first. We have to work the bugs out of it. But let me just close with, it's a program that's adaptable. There's also a link on there that says suggestions. And you hit the suggestions link, and you can say, hey, I think that we should change this field to read like this, or reorder it, or add a different field. You put it in there, and there's going to be someone that actually answers that field for you, because we have a full-time administrator, and that's how committed we are to providing this to our MICC workforce.
Great. Thank you very much. A member from Fort Bragg states, MICC leadership at all levels promote the contracting career field is a profession, and thereby the workforce are professionals. Yet, at the same time, they do not entrust our GS-12 KOs and GS-13 division chiefs with the authority to act in regard to approving solicitations and contract awards. While KOs can approve SAT actions, our division chiefs have no approval authority whatsoever. Will we consider allowing the directors, who know their personnel's capability the best, the authority to further delegate approval authorities to at least the division chief level? I open this up to you.
Let me take the first part of it, the preface of it.
Okay.
You know, great question from this MICC member. You know, just however, I just want to, when we talk about the profession, The Army is a profession, and the MICC is part of a team that's bigger, that's not bigger than the Army, but we're succession all the way up to the Army. And the same question is why we have a profession. Because to have a profession, you must have trust, which is the bedrock. Secondly, you must have certification, bylaws, policies, and regulations that govern that profession. So this actual policy that we have in place, or the procedure we use, actually solidifies the profession. So in divorce of the things that I just outlined, then it's hypocrisy regarding a profession, and there's just chaos. So I just want to put that out front, because that one has nothing to do with the other. Okay. The question itself about can we or can you is really what we have to get after, but that has nothing to do with our profession.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to add, Ben, that in fact the CG has powered down that responsibility. The issue is not the position you hold, but the capabilities of the people who hold that position. So that's the way the decisions are being made right now. Not whether you hold a position or not, but do you have the capabilities to execute properly? If the leadership that's supervising you thinks you have that capability, they will delegate as much responsibility as they possibly can to you. And so if they have any questions about whether or not that more power should be delegated to them, they need to go to their chain and talk to them about why hasn't it happened and why does they think that they should have it.
Okay, thank you. We covered a lot of topics, but before we go, I want to make sure each of you had a chance to highlight something that maybe that we didn't cover. General Gabbert, I'll start with you.
I would just like to close with, I am so honored to serve as the MICC Commanding General, and I am so proud of the MICC workforce. Their ability to adapt to different situations and yet accomplish every single mission that we give them just makes myself and every leader above me that compliments them so proud and thankful for what they do every single day.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cabaniss, any closing comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to tag on to something we said earlier about the ACC conference. Sometimes in the MICC, I think we get insular and we think about just what we see in our own organization without recognizing the good that's happening. Having gone to the ACC conference, it's clear people outside the MICC recognize the value of the MICC and some of the good and a lot of the good that we're doing. And so we should not only be proud of ourselves because we're doing the job, but we should be proud because others are recognizing the good jobs that we're doing. Whenever an organization comes up with a metrics policy that's being adopted by its higher headquarters, that shows that we're doing the right things.
Thank you, sir. Sergeant Major.
Again, it's truly a privilege to serve in this great command and for our Army. I just want to leave with saying, as we maneuver forward, we need all our MICC members, all teammates involved, family members and all, for one, to be safe, but secondly, to continue to contribute on innovative ways and efficient ways to help make our organization better. Because as senior leaders, we don't focus on today, tomorrow, not even next month. We're looking at 2020, we're looking at 2025. We're looking at ways to make this command not only stay relevant, but to also make it the cutting edge organization within our Army. And we're focused and dedicated to development, not just domain, also to professional development. So you know, a year or so or 10 years down the line, there would be a new commanding general that's a lieutenant colonel right here in formation today sitting in this seat, a GS-14 sitting in that seat, and a young sergeant first class sitting in this seat. And that's what we're charged to do, to develop the leaders of tomorrow so that when we all leave, depart, retire, whatever may happen, that our Army is still strong.
Thank you very much. Now, we did receive many questions concerning teleworking, mandatory training, fitness program for civilians, and other questions that were covered in the previous Perspectives show. For those responses, I ask you to go to the previous Perspectives shows that are located on the MICC SharePoint page. Look for answers to all the questions that were not answered here today on the Commander's Anonymous email. We will post those as soon as we can on that site. They're also on the MICC SharePoint page. In future Perspective shows, people can submit questions to the Commander's Anonymous email, or as it was in the past, directly to me. But please, if you send it to the Commander's Anonymous email, please mention that you would like it considered for the next Perspective show. Thank you for your time, General Gabbert, Mr. Cabaniss, Sergeant Major. We look forward to your comments and questions for future shows, as Perspectives will be back in a few weeks to discuss issues affecting the Army and the MICC. You can email your questions and comments to the email you see on the screen, or you can send them again anonymously through the Commander's Anonymous email. Thank you for watching Perspectives. On behalf of the MICC leadership team, have a great day.
Cool.